hard when that happens.
Exactly. Sullivan having to go offline to get by. That's Willie T. Ribbs that he went by along with Little Al.
Ribbs very wisely lets both leaders come through. But even a move when someone's letting you through can be very dangerous in some of the areas of this course because it is so very slick now.
Hardest course on the circuit to pass on the day. It's really been a tough one.
This is the first time since the race in Australia we've seen trees on an IndyCar race. Beautiful here out on Belle Isle.
Just think of all the thinking that these drivers are doing, trying to figure out if they're driving it too hard, if they're going to make it to the end with their fuel.
They've just gone past Arie Luyendyk's disabled car. The IndyCar safety vehicle is there and soon should maneuver out in position to try to get him off of the course. And yellow flags waved in that section of the race course. But on the rest of the track, the remaining 13 turns, well, they can battle, and Al Unser Jr. is doing just that. Though lately, both of them seem to be conserving a bit. Not now. Here comes Little Al again.
Bobby, we've often talked about what Little Al's strength is, and it's late braking. And we'll have to see whether there's any place around this track where he can play that ace. It seems like he's thinking about it, but he can't find a place for it.
Further update, Danny Sullivan. Here's Gary.
We just talked to team manager Ed Nathman for a brief moment, Paul. I asked him about, will you have to come in for the splash and go? Do you need a yellow? He says, I guarantee you we will not come in, but I can't guarantee you we'll make it to the finish line. They're sweating bullets down here.
So it was more praying and less mathematics when we saw Ed Nathman earlier.
Oh, here it comes. There's Little Al.
Little Al, but there's flags in there. He can't do a pass in that area.
You know,
he had the pass, but unfortunately the truck was there. Looked to us pretty scary for a while. It's going to happen, but when it's yellow, when they get to the yellow flag, they are not allowed to pass. But as soon as they go by him, like right now, back to racing again.
You're sure of that at this race? There was a yellow there, by the way, too, so he still can't pass in that area. They put yellows out both ahead and behind a situation like that to make sure that the cars get safely past so there's no peril for the disabled car or the corner worker.
You saw that shot of Rick Gallis. He, of course, allows his men to race each other, but I bet given the long drought here, the long lack of success for this team, he wishes they wouldn't race each other right now, and they would just conserve fuel and try to bring them home 1-2. Wouldn't you suspect, Bobby? This is tough on a team owner.
Sometimes it's good to have two cars in a race. Right now, it certainly will make one grow old in a hurry. Rick Gallis is doing that, I'm sure. Just doesn't work for Little Al here because they don't have high-speed straightaways where they can brake really hard in those slow-speed turns.
Plus, the place where you'd get offline to pull abreast is too slippery to make it really work. So Little Al, his hands are tied. And he's got two yellows, too. So part of the course is cut off for him.
Now, where he's working is the traffic that's ahead. Of course, we're back into the yellow area again now. But it's the traffic ahead. Danny can't pass that guy either. So Little Al's thinking, if he would block Danny just for a second where I could poke my nose alongside, it might be over.
Yeah, that's the kind of area where Danny Sullivan can be held back. Look at Little Al as he darts in and out again. But again, that's an area covered by yellow. So frustrated by the slower traffic ahead is Danny Sullivan. Frustrated by the yellow flags is Al Unser Jr. That's Marco Greco sitting just ahead of both of them.
Greco gets the blue flag, which is the move over flag, which he does.
Actually an advisory flag. It tells him that a faster vehicle is following. It's not a direct command to move over, though if you're running off the pace of the race, it's probably a good idea to get out of the way and let the leaders come through, if nothing more than avoid some sort of... We're back at Belle Isle in Detroit, the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. And overhead, the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company has dispatched the Blimp Spirit to provide aerial views of the Detroit Grand Prix today. And boy, they have helped out, especially when we keep track of a battle like this one for the lead between Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. Third is Robbie Gordon. Fourth, Raul Boesel. Fifth, Mario Andretti. Jimmy Vasser is sixth. Mansell is seventh. And Little Al makes another move. Same place. Still can't get it done.
You know, if you wonder because of fuel why he keeps pressing so hard, the reason is that he needs, for his own well-being, to pass Danny now get in front of Danny and make it hard on Danny, as opposed to right now, it's hard on him because Danny is out in front. Danny's only worries right now is, of course, lap traffic or traffic ahead of him.
Just remember, Robbie Gordon, young 24-year-old, back in third. He could become the beneficiary of this whole race if these guys run into trouble.
Finish some of that. Johansson when he made behind Mansell, who's 7th. 8th is Bobby Rahal. Paul Tracy is 9th. And the fight continues for the lead. Now they have against lower traffic. That's Matsushita ahead of them.
Oh, this is the closest opportunity Little Al's had in a while.
And let's also keep in mind, Paul Tracy and Bobby Rahal shouldn't have to stop anymore because of fuel. So they're going to become a factor as this race nears its end.
The yellow zones have now begun to clear. Green flags fly here. Danny Sullivan comes out alongside Matsushita. Now, right up here is where Little Al has been trying to make a move for several laps. Let's see if he can get it done this time. Nope, he's too far back off.
Sullivan 19th in the championship. Little Al 8th at this point.
Fight continuing at the front. This is the only battle on the circuit at this moment, and it is at the front of the field.
If that makes us anxious, just think lap after lap how bad Rick Gallas has got to be, because he really can't take sides on this thing.
Wonder what's going on in the Rick Gallas pits. I'm sure they're still thinking about it, Gary.
Indeed, we'll find out from the man himself. Rick Gallas, your drivers run 1 and 2. First, let's address the fuel. Can they make it, or will they have to come in?
Well, I haven't checked with Ed, but Al can make it. I'm not sure what Danny can do. I haven't checked with Ed, but we can definitely make it.
Now, I'm sure Danny doesn't want a yellow. Al probably wants one. Would that be the case?
No, we don't want the yellows. We want to go for it now. Let's get after it.
All right, you're 1 and 2. You're calling the shots for Junior. Nathman calls it for Sullivan.
Good morning. We get back to Albuquerque.
Nice to be up front, eh?
Thanks, Gary.
Paul?
Well, if things work out, they'll be ordering a nice fresh chocolate sundae so they can all celebrate. Danny Sullivan is in the lead. He's been running laps a little over 100 miles an hour. And Al Unser Jr. is behind him. He's been running laps faster, but look at Danny now stretch out a little bit.
He could be cooling his tires for a little bit, too. And when he sees a car like this coming up, Little Al probably try to close up to take advantage of a lap car.
Sometimes you want to change the rhythm, and you see him move right back up again. You want to take the edge off the guy that you've been pushing so hard, maybe get him to relax for a second, and then pounce on him. I think Little Al has been trying A, he's tried B, he's tried C, and we're looking at D right now.
Sam, you covered that one pretty good. That's exactly what he's been doing.
Robbie Gordon was a spectator from third place in this battle, but he has fallen well back now. The fight is still right here. Down through the rest of the order. Everything else is static. 65 laps of the 77-lap scheduled distance are now complete.
Both these men, of course, have won Indianapolis once. They have both been national champion once. They are, as I said, highly paid, highly motivated, very great racing drivers who've been in Eclipse for the last year or so, since Little Al won at Indianapolis a year ago and Sullivan won at Long Beach the year before that. So this means the race before that. So this means an awful lot to both.
Spectacular ongoing battle at the front. We'll watch Al Unser Jr.'s telemetry. By the way, despite all of those full course yellows, we're averaging 84.6 miles an hour. Nearly 4 miles an hour faster than the record. And now Jimmy Vasser, who was doing so well, is into the barrier. And another car in there. Very difficult to identify that one. That might be Willie T, but I don't want to take a guess at that. I guess I already did, didn't I?
Yes, you did, Paul, but it looks like it's Willie T, but it's really impossible to say with all those tires and the red wrapped around the car.
And the question is going to be, will they put out a full course yellow for this one? Vassar was running so well, up as high as 6th, and then into the barrier. Again, evidence of how slick it is just off the line. So if Al Unser Jr. wants to make a pass for the lead, he can do it, but he's going to have to be awfully careful. There you see the yellow flag ahead of the accident involving Jimmy Vasser. Vasser's obviously okay, climbed out of the car. They move on past and can resume racing speed once again. Fight is still at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr. decides to stay behind his teammate the fight will continue on. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Danny Sullivan still leads Al Unser Jr. This is the only battle on the circuit. Everything else remains static. We still have a yellow section of the course, a caution section, because of the accident involving Jimmy Vasser. He's out of the car, no problem there. They're trying to get both of those cars cleared off the edge of the race course.
Just keep in mind, these tires don't get any better. They get slipperier as it goes on. The further we go on the race, or the closer to the end, the harder it's going to be for little Al to pass. But Danny Sullivan appears, because of Rick Gallas, to be lower on fuel than little Al is. So it's really going to get interesting.
Now you saw Vasser into the barrier almost nose on, and if you come by here, you can see there's also a second car there. That is Marco Greco's number 30 car. It was apparently left there after he just abandoned the car in that section of the race course. So that was not a two-car accident. Vasser just nosed on into the tires.
Top speed of about 165 reached here. You see a defensive line going in there by Danny Sullivan.
Now, you know that Rick Gallas is telling little Al that Danny may not make it on fuel, but he won't tell him, and you can see that he hasn't told him that Danny won't make it on fuel. So he knows that there's a chance of it, but little Al knows at least that there may be a weakness on fuel with Danny.
Couldn't pass right there because of the vehicle. That's also one of the rough sections of the race course. But now they're again in contact, and little Al's going to look. It looks like they touch for a second there. Little Al comes to the inside. They continue side by side. Al Unser Jr. has to drop behind as Danny Sullivan has the better line into the corner. But is little Al anxious to try? You bet he is.
Well, that's about as hard an attempt at a pass that I've ever seen in my life. Danny virtually never gave it up. It looked like after Al touched him that he would give it up, little Al get by, but no way.
Danny with 16 career wins, Al Unser Jr. with 18. That shows how closely they are matched through history, and boy, that move shows you how closely they are matched right on this track right now.
Al Unser Jr. now using a technique of dropping back a little bit during the yellow zones and trying to get a run on Danny Sullivan. Looked like it just may work.
Yeah, cool his tires a little bit. Tires are really important today. Remember, the tires are softer. Heat's getting to him a little bit, so he cools them down, and then he takes a run at Danny, and I'm sure he's going to try it again.
A driver's heart rate is typically triple what it would be resting. You might be seeing a heart rate here. Oh,
and Nigel Mansell in trouble. And the full course yellow comes out now. Nigel Mansell climbs out of the car. They go to make sure that he is okay and the car can get off the course. But they are going to a full course yellow. We've got Vasser's car out there. You have Mansell's car. The leaders will close up. Fuel will be saved, and we can sprint to the finish.
It's certainly going to change all the game plans for practically every car on the racetrack, because the yellows, you get about twice the amount of mileage as you do under the greens for the fuel, Paul.
This is the first race that Mansell will not have finished that he entered this year. And it will have some repercussions as far as the championship is concerned.